What up, y'all? Appreciate you showing up, hanging out, listening to my dumb ass. Like and subscribe. So, I wanted to talk about something that's happening in the industry as a whole. It is, I don't want to call them false narratives, but it is a trend of narratives that sometimes may be false. I mean, of course, it's subjective. It's an opinion type of thing. Oh, I think this, that. I mean, some of it isn't. Some of it is like proof positive. And then it's all about interpretation, of course. So one of them is the whole console sales thing, right? So I was listening to Addict's last video, and he was talking, he was like, well, we know, well, paraphrasing, of course, he's like, we know the PlayStation is outsold Xbox drastically. He said some adjective, right? And yes, we know that the PlayStation has sold more than Xbox, but we're not sure what the actual numbers are because, well, one, Xbox won't release the numbers, and B, Sony is not releasing the real numbers. So numbers are all over the place, right? So we don't know about that. But I didn't want to talk about that. That's not what I want to talk about. What I wanted to talk about was the narrative that, or not narrative, but the narrative that Xbox is bad at marketing, basically. Oh, they suck at marketing, they suck at messaging, blah, 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 right? When the reality is, some of their messaging, yes, because they, for some, or if you're paying attention, they are out there speaking to the audience, to the press. They're out there speaking all the time. And when you do that, you know, whether it's interpretation, whether it's crossed streams or, you know, just cross messaging, yes, that does happen when you talk a lot. And that's the difference between Sony and Xbox. Sony's not saying nothing. They're not saying that. When Concord failed horribly, where was Herman Holtz going on, kind of funny, talking about, yeah, we messed up, we're going to take the L for that? They ain't saying nothing. They never say anything. So that's the difference. Would you rather have a company that doesn't say nothing ever, except when they're doing good, when it looks good for them, or they're going to brag about it, but when it's bad, no, they're not going to say nothing, they're not going to own up to nothing, right? Or someone who's out there speaking to you, communicating. That's not what I wanted to talk about, though. What I wanted to talk about was the narrative of Xbox is bad at advertising. I mentioned it just a second ago. They're bad at marketing. PlayStation's the best at marketing. Oh man, they're the best. That's not what's happening. You guys aren't paying attention. And what's happening, and I keep seeing it, Addict was a perfect example of it. They hear something enough times that it'll click in their head and they'll actually repeat it. And it becomes a kind of semi-truth. When in reality, it may be far from that. So, Xbox, ABK, you look at the Outer Worlds trailer that they had before, the replacement. That's one of the line of trailer of ads, the Call of Duty Black Ops 6. I had no idea about this. I learned about this like a couple days ago. And I was like, oh, it's the dude from, that dude from like all the Michael Bay films. And yeah, that guy. I mean, I guess he's been the replacement forever or whatever. But he went, it was pretty hilarious, brilliant. It was a really good marketing campaign. And so I'm like, all right, so he's like taking over all these shows and he's doing this. I don't hear any ponies or donkey unicorns or anybody out there talking about, oh, the marketing is bad, the marketing is... What? Why don't you say something? Oh, they got some good marketing now. Yay, they're not bad anymore. I don't hear that either. I don't hear nothing. See, it seems like Sony's fans, the ponies and the donkey unicorns and their bought media outlets are just like Sony. When it's bad stuff, they, oh, hey, look over here, sleight of hand. Let's distract them. When it's good stuff for Microsoft, zip, nothing, no nothing. No news, no nothing. So, I'm like, whatever. And that narrative of, oh, Xbox is bad at marketing. No, they just had a Fallout. It was Fallout Day today. I guess it is today. And I saw I was watching Luke Stevens, and he was like kind of running through the little presentation. Not a presentation, it was just a video that they had. Bethesda. And it was kind of cool. It was like a goofy little video, and a couple other people turned into ghouls. It's just like, all right. And it was a goofy little fun little thing. And, you know, it's harmless. And they had a couple of announcements, but it wasn't like, oh, Fallout 5's coming. Nothing like that. But, you know, just a little update here, update there, nothing special. And then, and it was cool. Does that count towards marketing? Or that's not marketing at all? You know what I'm saying? Then you got Metaphor, the quick little 5-second, 10-second ads that flash up everywhere. I've seen a lot of them. Marketing that thing sold 1 million in one day. Seems like the marketing's working. So I don't want to hear no donkey, unicorns, and ponies talk about, oh, Xbox sucks at marketing. No, they don't. I think if you look at the Xbox Series marketing, even that first video that they did at the Game Awards, that was so nice. It was like when they had what's his name? I forgot the dude's name. That he was a British professor or something like that. And he was talking about the end of the dream in 75 years. And it was like an old school clip of him because he's passed away a long time ago. And I was like, that's like, all right. You know, problems with certain games coming out, and it took them longer, you know, COVID and all that stuff, and just kind of, I would say, a little bit of mismanagement when it comes to Halo specifically, and Redfall. But you hear the rhetoric, oh, we're gonna learn from this and and that's just like kind of like boilerplate, like, yeah, this is what you say. But it feels, I'm looking at Call of Duty, right, and I'm like, okay, Microsoft's in charge. They own them. Activision is, you know, they still got their people and you know, they're still doing stuff. So I'm like, okay, that's looking good. So I haven't seen any like mess ups, like how, you know, how they're talking about, you know, not Fable, I'm sorry. You know, Halo Infinite and all this stuff. They've been on, like, since the summer show, even before the summer showcase, when they had, like I said, the Outer Worlds 2 ad trailer that was in that, whichever, I forget what year that was. That was hilarious. That was the best trailer in that. I was like, yo, who would get these people to write some ads? I want Microsoft to be like Sega was versus Nintendo. Sega does what Nintendo don't. That's what I want. I want that aggressive marketing, that dissing the competition. Let's go. No holds barred. Stop I mean, you know, people say kumbaya, forget that. Look, Microsoft needs to just be like, look, we're just going to make fun of y'all. And, you know, that's what it is. That's what's going to be. And if you got tough skin, then you can do it. But if you don't have the tough skin, I don't know. There are more false narrative threads. Like, oh, the Xbox Series S is holding back the generation when, in fact, it's PlayStation 5. And the proof is that the PlayStation 5 Pro is barely better than And here's another thing. It's really the media. I'm looking at Digital Foundry, and sure, they're hardware geekheads, but they have been disingenuous, because what they've been doing is a bunch of PS5 versus PS5 Pro analysis. And the gulf is like this. It's like, it's like barely, right? It's like, really? It's like barely a difference. And I'm looking, I'm like, so where's the Xbox Series X versus the PS5 Pro? Where are those? Because here's my conspiracy theory for today. I don't think Sony wants them to do that, because if Digital Foundry does Xbox Series X versus PS5 Pro, and people see how close they are. Remember the whole last generation with the PS4 Pro and the PS4 this was the mentality, is that it's good enough. It doesn't need to be the most powerful. It doesn't have to be the highest resolution, because the Xbox One X was that. Higher frame rate, higher resolution. So now the PlayStation 5 is that already. And if they do Xbox Series X versus PlayStation 5 Pro, the Xbox Series X is good enough for those, multi-plat, obviously. And then you look at the price difference, and you say $450 versus $850, basically, when you go to tax and stuff. So like $500 versus $850, good enough. Because I can get 2 Xboxes for the price of 1 PlayStation. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you could get like 3 Xbox Series S's if you want to be frosty like that. But, once again, the narratives, they keep pushing them. They keep saying these certain things, and it gets kind of engraved, subconsciously, I would say, in a lot of people's minds, and they just say it because they're used to hearing it. And I want people to stop and think. And when you say something like, oh, it's the most powerful console, it's like, okay, well, maybe. I mean, the Xbox Series X is right now, right? It's the most powerful console. Nobody's saying that. Nobody cares because they don't want to admit that. But once the PlayStation 5 Pro comes out, then, people say it all the time, right? Because that's what they want to project onto PlayStation, on their brand. They want their brand to win, so they say these things. But in the actual light and in the consumer space and the consumer mindset, the PlayStation 5 Pro is not the best console to buy based off of price for performance. Now, D-Batch would have you believe something else. It's like, oh, it does. Look at the ray tracing. I'm like, yeah, but 30 frames. You can't do ray tracing above 30 frames. What is the point? That was such a misguided technical console iteration. I mean, Mark Cerny's smart. I'm not saying he's not smart. He's very smart. But that wasn't it. And I keep going back to this. And I'm sure it's not Mark Cerny. It's the price. The price is the main thing that's holding Sony back right now, is that price. And I'm gonna say, a lot of people have said this in the comments and stuff, and I agree with them. It's the Concord tax. We have the Xbox tax over on the Xbox side. The blue side has the Concord tax, and that Concord tax entails higher prices for everything. For every pony, donkey, unicorn, and Sony PlayStation fan, y'all are paying more PlayStation 5 Pro. That's the reality. Because if Concord sold 1 million units, made making money hand over fist, do you think they might have subsidized a little bit of money on that PlayStation 5 Pro? Maybe. They wouldn't be raising prices. Didn't they just raise the prices again in like Australia or someplace? I forgot where it was. Like they said, for the second or third time they raised the price. I'm like, why y'all still raising prices? Why? Isn't inflation slowing down? What are y'all doing? Because they can get away with it. I forgot who said that. I think it's Jeff Grubb. I haven't listened to Jeff Grubb in a long time. I've been gravitating more to Luke Stevens because he's more of an easy listen. You can just pop him in and he's enjoyable. His voice, I can just listen to his voice. I don't have to worry about what he's. I mean, he does use visual stuff, but I wouldn't say he's I don't know what type of fan he is. He's more of a PC guy, I will assume, but he's not a pony and he's not a bot. So I prefer listening to someone who's outside of those circles to get that view. Because these donkey unicorns and these ponies are ridiculous, and they keep cheerleading and they keep pushing these false narratives that are getting stuck in people's heads. And what's going to change that? You can try to run a campaign against it and all that stuff, and some of it works, and it does actually work against them as well. It'll backfire against them, not specifically bad-mouthing Xbox, but Concord. This is a perfect example of a game that is the worst game ever created. The worst performing game, the worst failure ever in gaming. The worst Sony failure, the most expensive it's everything bad about video game failures. Concord. And Concord has become a verb. Don't Concord it. Don't be Concord. It is a new lexicon, new vocabularies happening every day. Concord is now part of the, I would say, North American vocabulary in video games. But that has backfired on them because it was such a colossal failure. You see how that works? Now, would you say Concord is more of a colossal failure than PlayStation outselling Xbox? You see what I'm saying? It's like, when you think about bad news, because that's what's popping off anyway, right? People like bad news. You think about bad news. You think about the Sony bad news versus Xbox bad news. And the Sony bad news isn't just, oh man, it's bad news, but we still got games to play. A, you barely got games to play. B, bad news for Sony means bad news for its fans, its payers and players. Because Sony doesn't ever take responsibility for what they're doing. They pass the buck off to y'all. And y'all are gonna pay. Because that's what you do. You don't say, no, I'm not buying that. Well, actually, funny enough, I think that is what's happening this generation, because a lot of people aren't buying Final Fantasy. I had someone in my chat in comments say that they're not buying Final Fantasy because it feels like a ripoff to them, because they split it into 3 parts and they're charging $70 each part. And I didn't even think about it. I was like, oh yeah. That's actually the first like case study of what they're doing with Spider-Man. Except they're only charging supposedly only charging $50 each for Spider-Man Part 3, Part 1, 2, and 3. Spider-Man 3, Part 1, 2, and 3. There you go. Marvel Spider-Man 3, Part 1, 2, and 3. So I was like, I didn't think about that. So that's $210 without tax for all of the Final Fantasy 7 remake, because they split it into 3 parts. Plus they have that DLC for, I forgot what it was, the Tifa, whatever, I don't know. So, and he said in the comments, and I was like, oh snap. And he said, hey, I'm gonna wait for the collection when it comes out, or maybe when it comes out on Xbox or PC or something like that. I'll wait till the price drops. And I was like, that's probably why it didn't sell. One of the reasons why, at least one person, and also it's not a multiplayer online game. So the zeitgeist is forever. Well, not really, but if someone says, yeah, I'll buy that eventually because I don't need to be as part of this day one zeitgeist to play because it's not an online game. That's one of the main failings of PlayStation, is not realizing that the games that they make are games that potentially could sell forever, but at the same time they're acting like they're Nintendo and they're going to keep the prices the same. That's only Nintendo gets away with that because their fans are ridiculous. Sony, they're trying to get PC player will wait forever, because they know when it comes on PC, it's theirs. And when I say it's theirs, mods. You don't understand how I think mods on PC is the number one reason why PC gaming is superior to console. That's like, I would be real. If I could do the same level of mods as PC on console, then I would not have said that. I would have said, nah, I'm gonna stick with console. It's easier, and I could do the mods. Now, with Bethesda games, I can do that. They have almost all the mods from, I mean, of course they come out in Nexus first and then, they come over. But most of them are there. And so I'm like, cool. But it's not every game. But every game on PC can be modded and is modded. And so when like God of War, all these other games come out, and that's the hilarious part. God of War is like, oh, you got to sign in, PSN, blah, blah, blah. And the fact of the matter is you don't. Sony's trying to just implement this arbitrary rule because they want to get their MAU numbers up. But someone modded that out. That is the irony and the hilarity of this whole thing that PlayStation's trying to do. They can't do it because modders will mod. And it's not like they're going in and stealing the game. They probably buy the game and then they said, well, I don't want to sign it. So now, I expect every game that PlayStation tries to put out on PC that says you got to sign up for mods are gonna boop boop boop. They're gonna knock that right out. Sony's gonna spend a lot of money trying to get around that stuff, and it's not gonna work. I don't know what they're gonna do, but whatever. And that's hilarious to me because I'm sitting here, I'm watching. It's like Sony's trying to do everything in their power to do stuff except actually do the work. It's like, oh, this money had this game, money had that game. The money that they spend, money had games. How much money is that? I want to know how much money they're putting into all these third-party money hats instead of giving it to a studio that they closed. Look, business is business. You can say the same thing about Microsoft. Oh, Microsoft has all this money and blah, blah, blah. Yes, Microsoft has all this money, but Xbox does not have all this money. They have access to it if they ask real nice. And I guess Amy Hood's still there. I don't know. And Satya be like, all right, cool. But, you know, we got to do something on the other end. So there's consequences and repercussions. So Phil knows this. So it's like, look, if we keep our budgets in line, we don't have no problems with the uppers. You know what I'm saying? We get the You know, it's the same thing that Sony has. They have budgets they have to adhere to. I think Microsoft is making more profit. I mean, they are making more profit. So that's good for them. So they have more money to put back into, you know, the games. They don't have to go into Microsoft's pocket to get some money for this, that, and the third. So, you know, it's like I said, the false narratives that are kind of brainwashing the public. It just irks me, you know. And I just wish people would be a little bit more analytic about the facts. You know, yes, PlayStation is outselling Xbox worldwide, but a lot of the times, you know, these fanboys, these ponies knocking unicorns, are going on Twitter and be like, "Oh, it's outselling it 12-1," and I'm like, I know what they're doing because they take a specific, like Tanzania, it's outselling. It's like, okay, sure, it did that one weekend, this one time. So they're actually technically not lying, but they're twisting the reality, and it's making it look like they're selling all around the world 12-1, and it's not. That's not the reality, and that's what I want. You know, I want clarity. I want clarity in the facts. That's all I want. You know, but I mean, besides that one point, which I mean, it's annoying, but you know, I can get over it because I see the changing of the garden, the changing of the industry itself. And Microsoft is there. They are ready. Sony is not ready. And that's why all these things are happening to Sony, because they're like, oh, we got to do this. Oh, we got to do that. They don't know what they're doing. Yeah, but anyway, I'm rambling. I appreciate you hanging out. Like, subscribe. Hit me in the comments below. Let me know what you think about like these false narratives of, you know, Microsoft sucks at marketing, messaging. Yeah. I could agree on some points on that, but as an overall, at least they're talking. Sony doesn't say anything, so does that make them better at messaging? No, it doesn't, because they're not saying anything. So if you're not saying anything, how can you be good at messaging when you're not saying anything? What's the roadmap? Where's Sony's roadmap? Have they messaged that to its fans? No, they haven't. Anyway, I appreciate, and I catch y'all on the next one. Till the wait.